स्वागत है आज के कार्यक्रम में. A very warm good afternoon. I welcome all the teachers, all the principals, officers from the CBSE COEs who have joined us today in this program. So today we have a very brief program, brief teachers connect webinar which we are doing, and we hope to talk about what we have been doing here in the CBSE under the reading mission. Besides that, we want to share a glimpse of the possibilities that books and stories can offer in terms of student learning and pedagogy. So the CBSE launched the reading mission for as a 2-year program, sometimes in September 2021. We have done this in partnership with Storyweaver and the Central Square Foundation. Besides this, the CBSE has very recently concluded the Reading Challenge, which was open in English and Hindi for students of class 6th to 10th. And of course, we've just started the 100 Days Reading campaign from January 1st. During all these programs, the COEs have played a very big role in helping us connect with teachers and educators all across the country. So as we begin the program, may I request Dr. Biswajit Saha, Director, Trainings and Skill Education. I see sir as well. Sir, may I request you to and welcome everybody here. Saha sir.
Sir, namaskar.
Namaskar.
Sir, we've just begun with the program and I was requesting you to address all our participants who have joined.
Oh, I'm sorry because हम लोग एक interview
Yes,
में
sir.
sorry.
Sir.
Yes, just give me 30 seconds.
Please, sir.
Yeah. Respected Chairman, CBSE, my colleague, Director Dr. Joseph, Dr. Sheta, other colleague from CUE Bhubaneswar, and of course, all the eminent school leader, faculty member, and of course, from our partnering institutes, both CSA, Pratham, and Storyweaver. It's a great opportunity for all of us to witness such kind of event where this reading missions was conceptualized by Ministry of Education, and of course under the ambit of NEP, and how excellence can be rather we all together can be conceptualized in Indian education systems. Without reading, I think it is not possible. And by CBSE through the circular number 13 in 2021, we have rather taken one step ahead from the other board, how it can be rather as a part of the curriculum journey, and how teacher as a leader can take up this journey first forward, so that ultimately classrooms can be propelled to take the journey forward. So at this point of time, I think there are a lot of literature we require and which are there in the web domain, but more and more customizations for the early age populations. And also, besides this curriculum textual material, what would be the reading habits of the children, and how really we can bring them into the reading space. No matter there is a huge library, digital space, but sometimes the gamified content, sometimes infographics-led cartoon-based content appeals more to the children. So at this point of time, wholeheartedly, teachers, the creative writers, all together, how we can bring this kind of ecosystems in the platform. One is, of course, can we think of a good platform which is readily available, and also can we add some values to it, so that through app-based learning, whatever these days children, that digital literacy missions and children, the way they aim to carry forward their missions, I think more and more techno influence is also required. But at the same time, socially, how can make them mixed in the platform? That is also more essential. So that ultimately, with this reading habit, whatever CBSE is aiming gradually, the competency based assessment and any competency-based assessment, be it PISA, TEAMS, PART, if you look into the questions pattern, even for that matter, our CTET question paper load also gradually, if we look into, I think the teacher's competency as well as children's competency needs more reading load, and without reading habit, I think this is quite impossible to achieve. Otherwise, post assessment, there would be some newspaper article, CBSE out of the box question puch raha hai, or maybe it is creating some problem. Just to avoid that, I think it is time now in 2022 January, if we take a place, yes, every teachers also gradually enhance their reading load, because I know you all as a school leader and competent teachers, you know your curriculum very much, because there was no massive change over a period of time. So at this point of time, if we can enhance our reading load, I think gradually we can motivate the children to enhance their reading load, and without this reading mission it is not possible. So wholehearted participations and support from your end is quite essential. And wherever and whatever way you want CBSE to help you, support you, we are with you. And Chairman Sir has a specific agenda to implement the competency-based assessment with CBSE as per the spirit of NEP. And he has several times asked us to do these things in a positive manner. I think without reading mission, this is reading mission could be the first milestone we can set, and accordingly we can activate ourselves towards this mission so that nations progress with these reading missions. Thank you very much. Namaskar and Jai Hind.
Sir, thank you so much. Thank you for setting the context of the program today. All of us do understand that reading is the foundation for all learning. And of course, it is learning a language and learning to read is a everyday process. However, the ability to develop into a critical reader requires a lot of concerted efforts from the end of the teacher, from the end of the peers, as well as the family. So the nuances of what the material is saying, what the text is saying, to catch that is a higher order ability. We all hope our CBSE students and learners would slowly come to that level and achieve that. So now I would like to invite our chairman, sir, to give the address and emphasize and motivate all of us. Sir.
Thank you, Shweta, my colleagues, Dr. Emmanuel and Dr. Saha, and all the others who are present here on this panel from Story Weaver, Pratham Books, from CSF, and other eminent experts in this field. A very good afternoon to all of you. And I think all of you must have already heard about that 100 days reading campaign, which has been started by the Ministry of Education. And I would just kind of refresh our memories about the National Education Policy 2020, which also lays a lot of emphasis on different pedagogies, including storytelling, including reading. And there's a line there which says that you learn to read, and then you read to learn. And I think that is what this campaign is all about. That is why we've started this 2-year program for schools, essentially empowering and enabling them to carry out these activities. So when I talk about reading, I think one which I just mentioned was the intrinsic purpose. Once you can read, then obviously you can learn better, you understand better. So that's the let's say instrumental purpose, why you are reading, and then you do it. And second is the intrinsic purpose. Like we were in a generation when there was no TV, so by default, I think a lot of us tended to take up reading, and that exposed us to let's say to a different world scenario environment, which wouldn't have been possible otherwise. Let us say we were in a small town somewhere and you start reading, you can go anywhere. You could go with people who are into adventures, or you could follow Alexander on his tour. And the good thing about reading is that it's suggestive. I mean, it's written there, but then your imagination can run wild, and you can start imagining things. And there are tremendous benefits or advantages of reading in terms of developing you as an individual, your emotional repertoire, developing empathy in you. I mean, you may be reading a story, but then there's so many people with different viewpoints, with emotions and all. That enriches you as a person. You can get inspired. I mean, you can read biographies or other stories, or even common people who undergone, shown great resilience and done wonderful things. So you can get inspired, and you can just expand your knowledge in a very creative and fun manner. And these advantages all come through reading. Now, the challenge before us is, I think, the competition which has come from instant gratification, games, TV, and everything is ready in a capsule in 5 minutes, quick response things and all, which obviously the mind finds it easier rather than something long, patient time you have to spend on reading and all. So I think the first challenge before us could be for a lot of audience to expose them to reading. I think the first steps are the hardest, because a lot of us would not be taking up reading because of the alternatives available. And I think that's one of the roles we have, to introduce children to reading early in their years so that they realize the benefits. And I think that most of them would continue once we are able to do that. But that initial effort is something I think we would need to focus upon. And since it's easier to watch things, and quickly learn things than reading, the teachers have to play a big role. The advantages of, the human mind. When we talk about learning by oneself, I think it's a when you read, you learn, you imagine, you learn, and that's a very active way of learning rather than somebody telling you about something. And secondly, once you the human mind understands things through narratives. So you put facts or you explain this is that one doesn't retain or understand. But if you take it in a form of and that's natural with human beings. You tell it in a form of a narrative, we retain things, we connect things, we are able to understand them better. So as a pedagogy, it's very important. So both these things, one, getting children to read books, and second, how do we integrate in our curriculum? I mean, if you can have reading and storytelling linked together, and use it as a pedagogy, there's a huge let's say field available where we need to develop. When we're talking about moving from rote learning or boring classrooms or passive learnings to interesting ones where children are happy and they're active, then this provides us with a very good medium. And the 2-year campaign CBSE has started with the Pratham Books of Story Weaver and CSF essentially tries to provide the teachers with the wherewithal, age appropriate, in different languages, grade appropriate, good material which can be used for this. And this is also, there'll be a round of let's say web connects or programs or webinars where teachers who can attend and then also would like to perhaps know more and learn about how do they actually use these resources. So this is what this is for, and I think we should build it up more. And also, if there are some, we can develop some resources. If teachers want to know how exactly do I use them, it could be helpful, and they could see it on their own. But I think there's a whole lot of there's an important need to kind of spread it more, get more awareness, and bring this more to our schools where more and more children read and more teachers enjoy this as a pedagogical tool and make it a part of our classrooms. So that's what we are looking forward to, and there's a very dedicated team behind it who will be helping all the teachers and all others who are connected to this program today. And I do request all of you to make a concerted effort to use these books, to bring it to your school and make it a part of your teaching learning process. So I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for emphasizing all the key points. In fact, when you say the stories are easy to recall and remember by students, I remember that the psychologist Jerome Bruner, one of his research suggests that stories are approximately 20 times more powerful than just remembering the facts which are told in a class. So, of course, as teachers, we do realize that stories bring something for everybody. They help us create images, they help us to connect with the learners also. Now, I'll invite Rohini ji to talk more about how stories can be such a powerful tool for a teacher. Rohini ji is a person who wears multiple hats. She's a voice artist, she's an early years educator. She has been a part of curriculum development also. And she has been a very critical element in one of our earlier Teachers Connects program. Highly appreciated by teachers. We got so much positive feedback. Welcome to the platform, Rohini ji. We all are keen to hear from you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, and thank you everybody else for having me here. I'm just going to share my screen so that we can go through the slides. So, as we've been talking about storytelling as a pedagogy and placing stories at the heart of a lesson, when stories are placed at the heart of a lesson, the entire process of learning becomes immersive and experiential. In fact, there's a lot of scientific research around this, that when stories become a part of anything, then in our brain there are certain portions that get stimulated and highlighted, and those portions are exactly the ones that get highlighted when you're experiencing something, which means that storytelling is so immersive, it's as good as experiencing something. Chemicals like cortisol, dopamine, oxytocin are released in the brain. But what about it? Why and how are these chemicals helpful to us? Well, cortisol is related with memory. And as teachers, as educators, I think when we are trying to put across anything in a lesson to our children, what we want is for them to memorize, for them to retain what we are teaching them. And that's where cortisol plays a role. Dopamine helps with managing of emotions. There's something called attention span in children. So as educators, I'm sure we faced this. If we are teaching our children, at times we tend to lose their attention, they get distracted. When dopamine is released, it helps them to stick along with us, and when stories are shared, they are hooked to the lesson. And oxytocin, it releases something that leads to empathy. And by the end of it, I think all of us educators want education to be more meaningful. We want it to be a meaningful experience for children, and that's where oxytocin plays a role. So not just immersive and experiential, storytelling is also proven for children who tend to get distracted very quickly, who are who have low motivation to get hooked to the lesson. uh, in what way can you use storytelling in your lessons? As educators, we all plan our lessons, and storytelling is amazing, because you can use stories as icebreakers. So you can start your lesson with a story. Maybe you want to set the ground, you want to introduce a concept, you can use a story there. Or the story can be the entire lesson itself. So the entire lesson can be storyfied. And that's how versatile storytelling as a pedagogy, as a method is, because it can be used in multiple ways to make your lesson effective, interesting, and to make learning immersive and experiential. Now, how do children benefit from hearing stories? There are multiple benefits of storytelling, and I'm sure that you all are already aware. If you have used stories in your lessons, in your classes, I'm sure you've experienced the power and the magic of storytelling. I'm sure you've seen how children begin making meaning of what is being conveyed to them. When a lesson, when a concept is storyfied, it becomes accessible to children. They start listening with a purpose, and that's one thing that stories do, apart from the many other benefits that are listed here on the screen. It stimulates the imagination. It instills a love for language. It motivates children to read. We've been talking so much about reading. The moment reading and storytelling are very, very closely connected. The moment children listen to a story, they get automatically interested in reading stories as well. Language skills, any language that you're telling the story in, it fosters language ability, vocabulary, comprehension. and memory. So when when they're recalling the story, when they're sequencing the story, and it happens automatically, when you tell them a story, they automatically start processing the story and they start recalling it. And when they're sequencing the story, it is leading to memory making in the children. And that's exactly what we want, right? As educators, we want them to understand and we want them to retain the lesson and for as long as possible. And that's exactly what stories do. And if you're talking about a classroom culture, so when you're telling stories, and when you're using certain catchphrases, some certain words, certain vocabulary, which you are as an educator mindfully integrating into your stories, those become accessible to your students. Your entire class culture absorbs those words, absorbs that vocabulary, and the love for language begins right from there. So, as an educator, as a teacher, a lot of times I get, this question that how do I choose the story? How do I know which is the right story to tell? What is the process of choosing the right story for my lesson? So, the first thing that I can share from my experience as an educator, as a storyteller, is that always choose a story that you like, something that you feel that you'll be able to tell effectively, something that you feel that children will be able to relate to, stories, characters that children will immediately connect with. Those are the kind of stories that you should choose for telling in your lessons. Also, it should align with what the purpose of your lesson is. What is the aim of your story? Aim, interestingly, stands for audience, intent, and message. So who is your audience? Of course, your classroom, your kids, they are your audience. What is your intent? What is the teaching purpose? What is it that you're using the story for? And what is the message? So that story should align with that. And of course, it should be the right length. Paucity of time is something that we are all as educators very, very conscious of. So a well practiced, a well rehearsed story which fits within the time frame of the lesson and serves the purpose that it is intended for, is how you kind of integrate the right story into your lesson. Of course, there are various other things that your teaching purpose entails. It should develop listening skills, comprehension skills, communication skills, life skills. But then, you know what, the moment you tell stories to children, these skills are automatically getting developed in those children. And how can you make your storytelling session effective? From my experience, if I if I share my experience with you, I think what is most effective is the way the story is told. Your facial expressions, your voice expressions, where are you pausing, what words are you emphasizing on, what are your hand gestures conveying, what is your body movement conveying, are you making eye contact with your children, are you adding humor here and there? All these are very important aspects when it comes to making your storytelling session effective. And all this works as a package deal. Everything from voice expressions, from facial expressions, to the right time limit, to emphasizing on the right words, to breaking ice properly, to chants that you introduce before the lesson, to the interactive bits that you integrate while you're sharing the story, where you keep pausing and then maybe say questioning your listeners, what do you think is going to happen? All of that works as a package deal to make your storytelling session effective. Another very important thing as a storyteller is your voice. Your voice is your magic tool, and that is what will make your storytelling sessions effective. So I'm going to do an exercise with all of you on warming up your storyteller's voice. There are 3 exercises over here, and we're going to quickly do these. And of course, once you get a hang of these exercises, you can use these exercises in your lessons as icebreakers with your students. And also you'll realize that when you do these exercises, you yourself will kind of relax before the story, and you'll be able to connect well with your listeners. So the first exercise is hello high and hello low and hello fast and hello slow. So I love this exercise, and whenever I've used it with my listeners, I've received an amazing response. So I know this is one way at the moment, but please try and connect with me when I'm doing this. So we're going to start say the word hello, okay, and in four different styles. So first we're going to say hello hi. So let's do it together. Hello hi. So that's how your voice really travels up. It really goes up. And then we're going to bring it down now. Hello, low. Almost as a whisper, it trails off. And then we're going to say hello really fast. Hello, 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 hello. And now we're going to say hello very slowly, almost stretching the word. And watch me and try to do this with me. Hello. Now, I'm sure that, when you do this with the children in your classroom, you'll realize that it's going to lead to a lot of energy rush. But this is also doing something magical for you as a teller. It's helping you come closer to the various possibilities of your own voice. You can take your voice really up, you can take it really low, you can make it dip to almost a whisper, you can speak very, very fast, or you can go really, really slow. And the moment you introduce all of these aspects into your storytelling session, you'll realize how effective that piece will become. The other thing that I truly believe as a teller is filling your lungs with air. The moment you do that, you're able to enunciate words better. Because as a storyteller, you need to speak a lot, and yet you shouldn't get tired. Your voice shouldn't get tired. You shouldn't get breathless while you're telling a story. And how do you practice that? So this 1, 2, 3 ha exercise is also really amazing. So let's do it together. What we're going to do is I'm going to count till 3, and then we all are going to basically, when we count till 3, we're going to fill up our lungs with air. And when I say 3, we're going to all say ha, and we're going to actually let out that air. So let's try it together. 1, 2, 3, breathe in and ha. Wonderful. And of course, another thing called smell the roses and blow the candles. This is again a really fun way to calm your own nerves as a teller, and at the same time connect with your listeners. So imagine that you have a few rose petals in one palm and a candle in the other hand. So we're going to smell the roses and we'll blow the candle. Try it with me. Smell the roses and blow the candles. So now this is a fun exercise, but what it's helping you to do is helping you breathe in and out. And that has amazing benefits. It helps you sharpen your skills as a teller. It helps you calm your nerves, and it helps you connect with your listeners. So you can use these exercises to warm up before a storytelling session and connect with your listeners. The next most important thing is voice expressions. Now, as I mentioned already, for a storyteller, his or her voice is the most important tool. How do you put expressions into your voice? How do you add character voices? Because the overall feel of the story really improves when you add character voices, when you add sound effects to a particular storytelling session. So say, suppose, obviously we don't have too much time, so I'm going to do only a little bit here, but you can take a screenshot of this and, practice this later. Say the line is, I've lost my way. If we add different emotions to it, it can be said in a different way. If I say this in a sad way, I would say, I've lost my way. But if I were to say this in a happy way, I've lost my way. It totally changes the meaning of the sentence. So you can add various other expressions and practice this to understand what really voice expressions do to the words that are being spoken. feeling and mood. I always tell, whenever I'm training teachers, I always tell them that sharing a story is a sensory experience. As a storyteller, the mood that you're conveying, the feelings that you are experiencing, the emotions that you're feeling, or the characters in your story are experiencing should be conveyed to your listeners. At that moment, when you're telling the story, you and the listener, the storyteller and the listeners, should become one with the story. You should start experiencing what the characters are going through, the highs and the lows of the emotions, how the story is moving. And how does it happen? When you speak the words with the right feelings and emotions. Now, there are a lot of words, like say the ones that I've listed over here, that can be spoken with the feeling that they convey. For instance, let's take the word sneeze. And suppose I were to say this in a story. Achoo! He sneezed. Blast off! They went blasting off into space. Crackle. The fire crackled. Bang! So when a word is spoken along with an action and integrated or woven into the story, it just adds to the overall feeling and mood of the story. So again, you can practice all of these words and try to add the emotion with which they are being conveyed, and you'll realize how effective they are. Word emphasis, as I mentioned before also. As a storyteller, you need to really plan your story, your lesson really well. You need to identify what are the words that you're going to highlight. And if you remember, I spoke about, mindfully integrating words and vocabulary into your lesson that actually become a part of your classroom culture. So this is kind of connected to that. But also, if you see, there is this one sentence that is here on the screen. It's, did Anya give Pia her red shoes? And there are different, words that I've highlighted in different here with different colors, as you'll notice. The moment you stress on the word that is highlighted, the meaning of the sentence changes. So I'm going to demonstrate one or two over here. And of course, you can practice this on your own later. But if we were to start with the first one, did Anya give Pia her red shoes? Here we will emphasize on the word did. Did Anya give Pia her red shoes? You said so, but did she really? And if we go to the next one, did Anya give Pia her red shoes? Or was it Zoe? You see how just by stressing on one word, the entire meaning of that sentence is changing. And that's exactly what you need to do. You need to identify what are the words that you need to stress upon. What is the vocabulary that you need to integrate into your lesson? Tempo and rate. When I'm telling a story, usually I'll share with you how I plan. I identify the portions in the story where I'm going to be speaking really fast, or the portion where I'll just go really quiet, or a certain portion where my expressions will become deadpan blank, where my listeners get confused as to what's happening, what she's saying, what's happening with the story curve now, where is this going, or just a silence, a dramatic pause. When you plan this, it adds to the overall ambience of your story. You can speak really slowly, and that may suggest that something in the story is sad, or maybe a little bit of suspense is getting added. Or if you're speaking very fast, it may convey excitement, anxiety, nervous, joy, whatever emotion that you want to integrate. You can measure that and put it across by way of the tempo and rate moderation. To practice this, again, I'm going to just do one over here, and you can do this later in your own time. A very simple sentence here. Schools closed in Delhi today following heavy rains. Very simple sentence. But if it's spoken really quickly, it can be spoken to convey excitement. Schools closed in Delhi today following heavy rains. Or if it's spoken slowly, it may convey disappointment. Schools closed in Delhi today following heavy rain, and at a moderate rate to simply state a fact. You see how just by changing the speed, the pace, I'm changing the emotions with which or emotions that the words are conveying. Pitch, the highness the lowness of your voice. And also, I get asked this a lot. How do you do character voices? I'm a beginner storyteller. I'm not a storyteller, yet I want to add character voices into my storytelling session. What do I do? So I always give them this example. You need to have a big voice, a small voice, and your own voice. And that's all you need when you get started as a storyteller. And to demonstrate this, I always give them the example of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Now, that's a very popular story, and I'm sure most of you have heard that. So there is Papa Bear with a big, heavy voice. There's Mama Bear, which can be your own voice. And there's Baby Bear with a very small, tiny voice, So suppose the sentence is, someone's been eating my porridge. And how do you say this with three different, voice pitches or with three different character voices? So if I were to say this like Papa Bear, I would say, and watch also, it's not just the voice, it's also how my body language is changing. Someone's been eating my porridge. And if I were to say this like Mama Bear, I'll use my own voice here. Someone's been eating my porridge. And like Baby Bear, someone's been eating my porridge. So you see how I have, it's very simple and you all will be able to do this. It's just one big voice, one small voice, and your own voice. And you'll be able to add three different character voices to your story. So what we're going to do now is, I'm going to tell you all a story. The story is called Angry Akku. And it's a book on the Story Weaver platform. I'm sure you can look for it and you can read it. But we're not going to read it today. We're going to listen to it. So this will also give you a sense of how do you adapt a story, a book, into a telling. So the story has been written by Vinayak Verma and also illustrated by Vinayak Verma. So once upon a time, there was a girl called Akku. Akku used to go to school and she was a very happy girl. One day, when the school bell rang, ding, 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 all the children rushed out happily. They were so excited. School was over. But Akku stood with a big frown, not looking very happy. Appa had come to pick up Akku. Appa was riding a bicycle. Come on, Akku, hop on, he said excitedly. Akku dragged her feet, literally trudged towards the bicycle and sat. Appa could figure out that Akku was not happy. Akku was not happy. What was she? What do you think she was? How do you think she was feeling? She had a frown on her head. Her nostrils were all flared up. She was breathing heavily. Akku was angry. You're right. Akku was angry. Appa figured out Akku was angry. He needed to calm her down. Look at those beautiful sunflowers, Akku. They're too bright. They're hurting my eyes, said Akku. Appa thought, this needs more work. They reached home and right there, what did they see? On top of the roof, there were monkeys. Appa was excited. Usually, Akku loved looking at the monkeys. Akku, look at all those monkeys. Akku looked at the monkeys and she said, "Chee! Go away." Appa thought, this is serious. Okay, Akku, come inside. Why don't you have a glass of buttermilk? No, I don't feel like having anything. Come on, have a sip. It's hot. Just one sip. Okay. She took the glass from Appa and took one sip. And another. And she gulped down the entire glass. She felt a little better. The frown relaxed a bit. Akku, would you like to have a vada? No, I'm not hungry, said Akku. Come on, have one. Okay. She reluctantly took the vada, took a bite and it tasted good. Mm, um, very nice. And she ate it all up. She felt a little better now. This was Appa's chance. Akku, what's making you so angry? Is it anything that I said? No. Anything that Amma said? No. Anything that happened in school? Maybe. Oh, okay. Here's a piece of paper and some crayons. Why don't you draw? Okay. Akku took the crayon and started drawing something on the paper. And then she showed it to Appa. This is that stupid brick. That made me trip and I fell. Oh, a rather stupid brick, said Appa. Akku, would you like to draw anything else? Yes. She quickly scribbled on the paper and she drew the picture of a boy. Who's that? This is that terrible boy, Biku. When I fell down, when I tripped on that stupid brick, Biku started laughing. Oh, one should never laugh at anyone when they fall. You must have felt terrible, right? Yes. What else would you like to draw? Akku started scribbling. And she made, this is an idli. When I tripped, it fell out of my lunchbox. Oh, that means you didn't eat anything. No. And Appa, this is a crow. It immediately swooped down and picked up my idli. Oh, that must have been a very hungry crow, Akku. Whatever. And this is my teacher, Amala Miss. When I fell down, she helped me. She held my hand and she helped me stand up. Oh, how nice of her. So good. But then she pinched my cheeks. I don't like it when anybody pinches my cheeks. Oh, that must have hurt, right? Yeah, but it's okay. I'm fine now, said Akku. And then Appa realized that Akku was feeling much better. Akku, would you like to draw something for Amma? Yes, look at this beautiful white mouse that I've made. And the coconut trees and your bicycle, Appa, and the sunflowers and the monkeys. Soon, Akku forgot all about being angry. Akku was happy. Now, remember, whenever you're feeling angry, what is it that you need to do? Remember what happened with Akku? Well, she needed to take a sip of something. Her father offered her some buttermilk. You could drink some water. When you're feeling angry, you could eat something as well. The vada surely helped Akku. Tell somebody, like Akku told her Appa. Draw like Akku did, and you will realize that you will start feeling much better. And one more thing, take a few deep breaths. Remember, smell the roses and blow the candles, and you'll feel better. And one more thing that really works, do a happy monkey dance, and you will realize that you're not angry anymore. So that was the story of Angry Akku that I wanted to demonstrate to you. Let me just share my screen one more time and take you through the rest of the slides. So I wanted to, there were two reasons why I chose this story. One is because it's actually been adapted. The telling has been adapted from a book, which you'll find on the Story Weaver platform. You can read it and see all the elements that I added to make it a story and different from a reading. And, like I added a few extra lines, a few extra words. I also deliberately added a few words, like I mentioned, mindfully integrating some vocabulary into your storytelling sessions to make it like a language rich experience for your children. A lot of times when you're using words while telling a story, they may not immediately understand the meaning of those words, but they'll be able to draw sense from your expressions, from the way you're conveying the story. How do you plan for a storytelling session? So, there are many things involved. Before the story, you need to identify, like I was mentioning, where are you going to pause? What are you going to emphasize on? What will you repeat? Is there anything in the story that you'll highlight? Like, in a story like this, when I would do this for a class, I'll make them do a few breathing exercises before I tell the story. I'll talk about emotions a little bit. I'll tell them to make a happy face, a sad face, an angry face, and then I'll talk about maybe extreme emotions like anger a little bit, just to set the base or the tone of the session, and then get into the story. So that's what you need to identify when you're planning your session. What is it that you're going to do before the story, just to set the tone of the story. During the session, what is it that you're going to be doing? See, something that's really important is eye contact with your audience. It's very important to keep looking at them when you're telling them the story. Look at them, look for reactions. When you're doing this in a physical setup, it's easy to do, because then as a teller you can move around. When you're doing it in a virtual setup, you can still set your screen on a gallery view and look at the listeners, see how the children are responding to your words. So it works either way, but make sure that you're connected with your listeners. Show excitement. Also, become one with the characters. So when I was portraying Akku, I was frowning, my fists were like this, and I was breathing heavily. I was thumping my fists onto the table to show that she was angry. And when I was portraying Appa, I was usually very calm. I was also, smiling here and there, like an adult would do, just an adult who understands what the situation is, and an adult who takes charge of the situation stays calm. So that's exactly how I wanted to portray that character, and Akku, of course. So you need to understand what the characters are going through, become one with the characters, and only then will you be able to convey the emotions effectively. Engage with the students. You can pause in the middle. Like I said, Akku was feeling, she had a frown on her head, her fists were like this, she was breathing heavily, she was, and I gave a pause, and then usually wait for the children to say angry. So engage with your students. Have a few portions where you repeat stuff so that you get an answer from the students. Sensory details become very important when you're telling a story. What could she see? What could she feel? What could she taste? Obviously, don't add all of them together in one place, but then make sure that you are adding enough sensory stimuli in your story to make it an effective one. And props, like right now what I did was I just used a few drawings, and I brought them to the screen because they were important for this particular story. A lot of times I don't use anything, and I just use my voice, because I feel that my strength is dramatization. But if you feel that your strengths are craft, and you like to make props, then go ahead and use what you like. When you're done with the story, what is the engagement that is required? Talk about the story. What do you think happened in the story? Why do you think Akku was feeling so angry? Has this happened with you also? Is it good to laugh at anybody? So do you think that Akku was hungry, that is why she also became more angry, because the crow stole her idli? So encourage children to talk about what they have observed. How do you think she was feeling when she fell down and Biku laughed at her? What do you think happened when Miss Amala helped her up and then pinched her cheeks? Has that happened with you ever? Do you like it if somebody pinches your cheeks? Try to help them identify with the characters. When they do that, they'll feel close to the story and the characters, and they'll understand the story and the lesson effectively and well. And of course, you can extend this to, can you think of any other ways to end the story? What do you think happened the next day? What do you think happened when Amma came? Akku was more calm when Amma came, and she related the entire, day's events to Amma. So you can add this to sort of help build their imagination after the story. Talking now about storytelling in a digital space, I did mention a little bit, but given how we are, telling stories and doing our lessons in the virtual space now, it's important that we are able to connect with our students, even though we are not physically in the same space. And it's absolutely possible. When you switch to gallery mode, you can see their reactions. Again, another thing that you need to do is make sure that you're neither too far nor too close to the screen. you should be able to, the children should be able to see your hand gestures. They should be able to see your face. If you're too close to the screen, they'll miss your hand gestures. And in storytelling, body language plays a huge role. So make sure that you're placing your screen in such a way that you're visible, at least from your face to your hands, your torso, so that is visible to the students. Backdrop should not be distracting. A plain wall is always obviously very good. And make sure you have a source of light in front of you so that your image is sharp. And also, another thing that I always say is that have one hand span just above your head. There shouldn't be too much headroom. There shouldn't be too little headroom. There should be just right amount of headroom so that there are fewer distractions. Children are able to focus on you. So that's about it for now. I hope I have conveyed at least a little bit of how to integrate storytelling in your classroom and using storytelling as a pedagogy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rohini ji. It was a fantastic session. I would also like to let you know that across our COEs, we have specially requested those teachers to join us who are passionate about storytelling. So I'm sure they have taken a lot of strategies, a lot of tips, a lot of exercises from you to emulate and figure out their journey in this storytelling pedagogy. Also, I think this is an appropriate time to mention that the CBSE has a course on storytelling pedagogy, and all of you are requested to go on to the YouTube where the details of this course are listed there. So whoever is watching through the YouTube channel, please make sure that you look at those details. I also want to emphasize that stories are not only a pedagogy for our junior students, they can be beautifully used for our senior classes also. In fact, I'm sure you would have come across the movie Don't Look Up, which is currently a rage on the Netflix, and it depicts the way scientist works. It depicts about comets and meteors in such a beautiful, beautiful way. Such a powerful medium to use in your classes. Also, another example could be probably the atomic structure, which is a very abstract concept for classes 9th and 10th. Now, it's important to trace the historicity of how the atomic structure, the scientist came to conclude how that structure evolved over a period of time. So when you talk about how one scientist, what were the various things he or she said about it, and then how those were refuted and the model revised, that also brings a lot of rich background data into your classrooms. Anyways, so this, continuing with the session, I would also now like to invite Dr. Vasanti Tyagarajan. She's the founder, principal of Shishya School, Husur. And Vasanti ma'am has been a part of many of the CBSE initiatives as we've rolled along. And she's a very, very important resource person for us also. She leads a number of programs. So ma'am, I would like to invite you to share your views, how you have been adopting the 100 Days Reading campaign in your schools, what your children have been doing under the CBSE leadership.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much, Dr. Shweta Singh. Hearty welcome to this session to all the members present here, Chairman sir who started the whole thing with us, and all the members who are taking us through this program. I'm a practitioner in the sense that I'm a very passionate storyteller. In fact, the CBSE program on storytelling, I do it for COEs, and that's something I just love. And if I can get my presentation across, I'd like to share some things, a little bit of my experience where we started with the CBSE's 100 Days Reading campaign. More importantly, as Dr. Shweta mentioned, during my Fulbright journey, I also found in the University of Maryland at College Park that a course which I had taken up was all about storytelling. And my mentor, Dr. Joseph McCaleb, used to keep that audience spellbound in that course. We had students from engineering, from medicine, from the police force who took short-term courses at College Park. The hall was full of 200 plus people in that course. And it was, you can imagine the power of the storyteller. And here what we did as an initiative was, we had an issue, and maybe problems are solved through a little bit of thinking from our side. Our parents in the online classes, especially kindergarten, we have parents who can't read English at all. And in online classes, how much can we support? So I came up with this, that we are going to start this CBSE, the 100 days campaign motivated me to start something for the lower kindergarten. And this is how we sent off this note that we're going to start simple reading exercises. But I didn't want children to learn by heart and then put things together. Comprehension doesn't happen quite that way. So I just designed this, which I'd like to show in the following slides, where I ask the parent, if you can go to the next slide, that's where I designed this very short reading piece and I recorded my voice. We can't play it now because of some issues, but I read it myself and I said, play it to your child 2-3 times over, listening to my voice, maybe 4 times over, and see if that child in that lower kindergarten 3 years plus can read on their own. And so I recorded my voice, embedded that in my PPT, which is not a very big thing to do for schools. We didn't use any kind of app. I just did it myself. I'm not a tech savvy person. So I just read off like, I can read. I go to the park with my mother and father. I can see a cat and a dog. I can see a bird and a frog. I can see a squirrel and a duck. I can see a lot of animals at the park. Of course, my slide had lots of pictures. We've removed all that for copyright issues. And I embedded my voice there and sent it to the parent. So in the next slide, we'll show you how some parents tried it out with their children without any kind of support. And I gave the parent the assessment that they can ask the child to try on their own without my voice support after practicing. And then ask the child to try and read the first or the second or the third read. We wanted a feedback from the parent. So we said, first read can read except for a few words. So the child has to go back for practice. Second read can read without help, but a little bit of hesitation. And the third one would be where the child is able to read straight off the practice slide with adequate speed and fluency. And I was pleasantly surprised to see the way the children got it, with the mother just showing the slide and pressing. She couldn't do more. We'll just show you the next slide. So here you can listen to that child who started reading on her own. If the voice is heard, I hope it can be heard. I don't think we can hear it, but it was a beautiful reproduction of my voice, which I was very happy about.
Rohini, you are on mute.
Just a second. Yeah.
I can read. I go to the park with my mother and father. I can see a cat and a dog. I can see a bird and a frog. I can see a squirrel and a duck. I can see a lot of animals at the park.
So this child was able to do it independently, and we thought this is very encouraging. The next thing we tried out was a grandmother. She's actually a gynecologist, but a very passionate grandmother. So she started reading aloud for her grandchildren. Due to the paucity of time, they're not playing that, but the children loved it. She read out the story of Little Red Riding Hood. And she obliged, though she's busy with her clinic and all that, I requested Dr. Nayak to come and do it for me. So this is another sampling of how we started using grandparents to come into the reading picture in the school. Yeah. And this is a little poem that I wrote because I write a lot of poems on my own. And I use this again for the lower classes. And I had one child in grade 2 who said, I'm not going to say it with the rhythm like you did. I'm going to try and sing it with a beat. And so he just decided to do it on his own. You can just listen to how he created his own beat with my poem. This is Nathaniel. You can listen to him.
Hey kid, I can see the clown. Can you see the clown, kid? Jumping up and down. Can you see the clown? See him in the town, kid. Can you see the clown? He wears a coat of brown. Be like this clown, no smiling, not a frown. Of course we can be like a clown. Hey kid, go play with the clown. Go play with the clown, kid. Have fun with the clown. Ever smiling, not a frown. Ever smiling, not a frown. He wears a coat of brown. Can you see the clown? See him in the town. Can you see the clown? Can you see the clown? Can you see the clown? See him in the town. Doing funny stunts. Doing funny things. Can you see the clown? Good.
So we did some, he calls it box beating, or I don't know what it is. So he said, no, I'm going to read it this way. These kids are so tech savvy. This is box beating or whatever. So he used his own sounds and he started singing this for us. So this is another sampling of how children started reading and enjoying the rhythm. Yes, thank you. And then the CBSE had given us a lot of suggested activities. So I just wanted to share how we took them across in the school. So if I can, yeah. So the first week, as suggested, we gave a lot of reading resources to our children, gave them some suggested ones where beautiful stories were available across ages. And we told them that every child should at least read one book and tell us about it. And we requested adult members in the family to also be present. So this was lovely instruction that the CBSE had given us to take this through very well. So Dr. Shweta and team should be congratulated for also supporting us to kind of, with strategies that we could possibly use. So this is what we did. And a lot of children started reading out. I can show you some work that they did after that. Yeah. Then we had family stories on week 2. This the children loved a lot because they sat with their families. It was so personal when we told them, write about your families, try to cull out your own family photographs, and then read out to your children, classmates. So the children wrote a lot of such stories. I've just selected one or two because of the paucity of time on the presentation. Yes, you can see one child with a family and how she wrote her own story and in class 6. So that was her part of it. Yeah, next please. And then we asked children to illustrate a favorite scene from the story or a favorite character or a reason why you like that character. This we all do when we teach literature, but this was where we specially use the reading challenge week 2. And you can see in the following slides some of those presentations. So here are some children who wrote that, illustrated and explained. So it gave a lot of scope for the children to actually explore a lot of creative thinking. Maybe they brought in problems or problem solving. They brought in dinosaurs which don't exist, but children still feel there are dinosaurs around. So we let them be there in their own world. You can see many of them clinging on to dinosaurs in that age. So these are some samples. And in the upcoming weeks, this is what we are planning, that in week 4, we'll ask students to take any short story and the summary could be recorded and sent. And reading poetry, we've given them Reading Rockets is a beautiful source of poems right from the lower kindergarten to grade 12. It's very grade appropriate. So children can select on their own and try and read poems. And we hope that teachers will also embed samples of poetry for them. Yeah, the next one, please. This is what is very dear to my heart because in Tamil literature, we have lots of novels of the past which have been lost on children because the curriculum and syllabus simply rushes them through. So this is one beautiful Parthivan Kanavu, which you can see on the right-hand lower side and translated by an American Indian, Nirupama Raghavan. She's just about, 13 years old. And she decided she must know something about Tamil literature. She got someone to tell her the story, learned Tamil, and she translated Parthiban's Dream. I bought the book because though I'm a Tamilian, I can't read my language. I was never placed in my own state of Tamil Nadu. but this is a rich culture. And this is one of the most beautiful books I read. And this girl motivated me to get into the other books. And many of them are now coming into English translation. So we're trying to bring this era of the past, rich literature of Silapadikaram or Ponniyin Selvan. These are books that have been lost out. And we want that culture to come back into our classrooms through the reading weeks that you have given us. It's a wonderful opportunity to start exploring our own rich culture in Tamil Nadu. And again, if you look at Bharatiyar, the great poet, and his poems, Avayar, the lady on the left-hand side, who has embedded Tamil literature and Tamil culture and ethos with her value systems through stories. We wanted this Avayar to come back. And many of our chief ministers are great writers who began life. Like you can see Mr. Annadurai, you can't read Tamil, so I have to explain and point out, this is Mr. Annadurai. And that would be Mr. Karunanidhi, our former chief minister, all powerful with the pen. So these are the people who actually evoked audiences through the power of the pen. So these are we want to revive that classic literature, which is getting lost with our children in schools in Tamil Nadu. Yes, please. And we also thought, how about those incurable romantics when we went with Gone with the Wind and Margaret Mitchell? Many of my children have not read it, and I said, you take it, you'll never put that book down. And there are nail-biting thrillers, which I still have in my home library, which I bought during my college days. The Alistair MacLean's, which went into Where Eagles Dare, and a host of them, Arthur Haley's and Airport and other things. I want to revive all this for our children. And we're going to use this opportunity of CBSE to ask children to start reading these books. They must, because they're all into the latest. They should be revisiting these classics. So these are some of our plans. Now we are trying to use different media. Teachers are trying to use alliterations now. A lot of poems are going to come on now with voiceover. These are plans for the days to come. We're trying to have hot seats like we did for the Mariner and Julius Caesar. We want to get characters on a hot seat. And there's something called a recount, which is an offshoot of a lesson. Enacting poems like Ode to the West Wind lends itself to a lot of body kinesthetic. And when we teach that through the 4 seasons and get children to play that, I think that's not a complicated poem. The Song of the Rain by Gibran. We're trying to use all of these opportunities now through the reading week to get children. And then art integration, definitely part of the NEP is going to come alive with reading now for us. Visualization is very common and we all use a lot. We're trying to get authors to be interviewed if we can, because a lot of authors are volunteering to come and speak to children these days. Yes, please. And these are some strategies like catch them young. So we're trying to start off with kindergarten. The sample I showed you, simple reading. We're trying to bring in stories now with the sequence. We're trying to look at careful selection of books, involvement of students to select their own books. Class libraries, what we do, books which are very good in the library. We have over maybe 7,500 volumes of storybooks for children. And when they get old, you can see my library never has new books. Children use and use and use them so much. So all those books we bring into the classrooms for children to read. We've asked children to build their own home libraries. We're trying to encourage online book fairs if we can, buddy reading, awarding book rooms, bookworms, and asking children to write very good book reviews for recommendation across the school to their peers. Yes, so these are, I think that's about all. This is not mine. I'm sorry. So I think this is where I wanted to share some of my strategies, and thank you, Dr. Shweta, for giving me this opportunity. And we truly enjoyed it preparing this because everyone in the school was excited that Dr. Shweta had asked us to do a presentation today, and we culled across a lot of practices, but due to the paucity of time, we couldn't play the videos where our children did a lot of their reading demos. Thank you so much. And Mrs. Rohini, your program was one of the best I've ever seen on reading. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vasanti ma'am. Gratitude from our end for documenting and sharing the practices which you have been doing in your school. I think this is a testimony to the fact that it's just not talk. In fact, when these strategies are put into action, then only the magic starts happening. So we've stretched our time instead of finishing at 4. I think we've already superseded the time limit. So I'll bid adieu. And with a big thank you to everybody. Thank you so much. The link for the feedback form is also being shared by the training units. And we hope to do many such similar Teacher Connect in the times to come. Namaste. Dhanyavad.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shweta. Thank you. And thank you to Archana and Ronak and the team, which actually got me ready for this presentation. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.